A textbook screening committee under Japan's Education Ministry on Tuesday approved 149 textbooks to be used in elementary schools from 2024. In some of the textbooks for 3rd to 6th grade elementary school students, Tokyo decided to dilute the extent of the coercion used in the conscription of Korean men during Japan's colonial rule. In a book for 6th graders, the current sentence, "Korean men were conscripted as soldiers of the Japanese army," will be changed to "Korean men participated in the Japanese army as soldiers, and conscription came after." Korean men were also described as young people who voluntarily joined the Japanese army. In another book, the term conscripted was removed altogether.
Hey everybody, this is Erico. So we're having some huge discrepancy right now with something that has just been happening over and over again with Korea, South Korea, to be specific, and Japan, and them fighting over history and telling the accurate depiction of history. And also not only that, but just their relationship and how it has been frayed over the years. Now, Japan and Korea recently have tried to come together, and they've tried to have this relationship where they're saying that we're going to try to mend years and years of conflict. And people were like, okay, hands off. A lot has happened, but maybe we can come to some type of agreement so that everyone can just move forward. So then moving forward, man, out of nowhere, once again we have problem with history and not being depicted the right way. In Japan, releasing books for elementary school students that do not actually show an accurate description of what happened to Korean people during World War II and during the time that Japan occupied Korea, and many Koreans were under Japanese rule. So they were forced to work in mines and factories. We're talking about a time where Korean people were pushed into living a lifestyle that they didn't want to live. They were treated like an experiment where they were forced to give up their names, their language, their culture, and to live in the way that the Japanese people wanted them to during that time. And it's very hurtful, so much so that there's still scars in the Korean culture to this day, where there are many people who do not get over it. There are many people that pass this hurt down for generation to generation, and they are taught that there's still this gap between Japan and South Korea. And it's not so easy to mend this gap and for there to be a bridge and for them to come together. And this causes more divide because South Korea was like, we just had a conversation about this. We continue to have a conversation about this. What don't you understand? Why can't you get it together and realize that we just want history to be told like it was? We just want what you all did to be told truthfully. We had history with the comfort women and forced prostitution. We have problems with the ownership of this island as well. Tokto. And how Japan just won't let it go. They're saying, this is our island. Korea's like, no, we actually have like old documents saying that's actually our island. Meanwhile, I'm in the middle looking, I'm like, it looks like some rocks in the sea. They said that island wasn't even inhabited. But still we have books that the Japanese government has greenlit that says, these rocks in the ocean belong to us. This is Japanese territory. So South Korean people are mad about that. They're like, why can't you all get it right? What is the problem? This is a huge headache because it's constantly like South Korea has to go behind Japan and they're just like, no, 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 that's not right. No, please change it. So the textbook makes it seem like that the South Korean people wanted to be working in these factories and wanted to be in the mines and wanted to be almost starved to death and working with the ribs showing. And so elementary kids in Japan would just believe that. And South Korean people have said, oh, hell no. You all need to change that and make it a little bit better depiction where it shows that, no, you all definitely ruled over us during that time. We did not want to work for days and days on end in factories for you all, where we saw none of the benefit of the wealth. At least for me, kids and learning this harsh history, and it also goes to like what America is going through, especially like black people talking about our long suffering in history, which is American history, and how to depict that for elementary school kids so they can kind of understand it. I do see where Japan is coming from because they don't want to put it all out on the table for these kids where they're just like, oh yeah, your ancestors were horrible. You all basically had this other group of people enslaved. Like an elementary school kid is not gonna be able to wrap their head around that, and even as they try, it's gonna be kind of damaging. They're young. I don't think that the full in-depth details should be taught at such a young age, but I do think it's important that there's an idea where they can kind of understand it and kind of understand it was wrong. But I do think that age plays a factor. Going more in depth should be something for middle school, high school. And I do think that there's a part of Japan that wanted to censor in a way how kids read and learn the story. However, I do also understand South Korea's point of view on this, and they're saying, well, it happened. You all did it, so it should just be out there in the open. But it's also harsh feelings because they've been censored for so long, and their history has been rewritten so many times that South Korea is like, we're done here. Enough is enough. I'm pulling my hair out because you all constantly try to pull one over on us. And this feels like another instance of that. I don't know how both sides could really win. They're just going to go and change a few words in the book and just re-release it again. I don't know if an elementary school kid is really going to process it though. I don't think it really matters per se, especially if the teacher's not going in depth about it and they're not showing visual aids for it. It's something they're gonna read and they're probably not really remember, and they're gonna care more about Ultraman on TV and their toys and their friends and going about their lives. Even I do think that once they get more mature, that a better level of understanding will be there where they can actually really learn it. I do think that this overall history is important, but I also think that it's not a good idea to harp on it too much. Like me as a black person, I don't harp on slavery. I don't. I do, however, understand that there's aspects of slavery that run deep in American culture and run deep in the judicial system, run deep in the criminal justice system, run deep in how cops patrol certain areas pertaining to people of color. And it's also there in Japanese culture as well. But I do feel like that Japan and Korea have had a relationship now where it is very much a trade going on there. We have Korean artists that are very successful in Japan. And there are people that are of this generation that are over it per se. You get like the angry person online saying like weird stuff, but that's probably a person that sits in their room and doesn't go outside at all. And the same on the Korea side of things. You got some real patriotic people We got some older people too that they're starting riots and burning the Japanese flag and all that. I don't think that I would be doing that. Life is too short. Even though it's important that this is talked about, it's important that everyone is treated fairly. It's important that history is taught. It is definitely a time and a place when it should be taught, but it should be taught. It shouldn't be censored. They use the word whitewashing in the English edition of this article. I feel like they changed the definition of whitewashing. Whitewashing was used for people of color when white people would change their history to fit their narrative. Now whitewashing is just changing the overall history, kind of like censorship in a way. I never knew it as that word as a black person. It's always been the definition I just said. So that's interesting to me, you guys. How do you feel about all of this? Whose side do you agree with more? Japan's or Korea? Are you kind of in the middle like I am? Put below your thoughts. Follow my social media, mostly my Instagram. Also belong in East Asian pop culture. The link is always down in the description box below. And remember, be real, stay real, live in the real. And I will always be back. I'm going to bed. I'll see you guys in another video. Love you guys. Love all the various opinions.